Hey, hey.
Hey, hey everyone. Hi, welcome and welcome to Alissa, our amazing guest. I have a question to start us off. Have you ever wondered whether you're on the right path? I wonder this all the time. And you may also be wondering if you're doing in your life what you were really meant to do. Or even maybe you're secretly afraid that you're just not good enough to take the next step in your career, take the next step in your business, or really just take the next step in your life. I'm Melissa Hereford, founder of Negotiate with Confidence, and my guest today is here to help you identify your goals and achieve the success you deserve your way. I love that. Alissa Daire-Nelson is seriously freaking awesome. And here's the thing. Not only is she freaking awesome, she believes and knows that you are freaking awesome too. She is an accomplished success coach. She's a speaker. She is the host of a great podcast I will recommend called The Freaking Awesome Entrepreneur. And she wrote a great book that I will also suggest you check out. And I'll put it in the show notes on the website after this Facebook Live. And the book is called From Frustrated to Freaking Awesome: 4 Steps to Achieve the Success You're Wired For. So welcome, Alissa.
Hey, Melissa. It is so good to see you. I just love spending time with you. So what an honor to be here and to share with you and the audience. And it's gonna be a good segment today. I'm feeling it.
Yes. I'm so excited to talk to you because I love your positive approach. I love your strengths-based approach because I did strengths training years ago and it totally changed the way I think about myself.
Yeah.
Things that I used to think were weaknesses and I would put so much time and energy into trying to fix them. I realized that was just kind of a waste of time because I'm wired to do other things well. And you focus so much in everything that you do in your podcast, in your writing, in your Facebook group on how do we focus on our strengths to be more successful. And yet we often struggle, and you talk a lot about this as well, with impostor syndrome.
Right.
So let's start with that. I want to hear what you have to say about how we get over that imposter syndrome so that we can realize really how freaking awesome we are.
Right. Well, it's an inside job, right? Imposter syndrome is an inside job. When we are busy judging ourselves against other people, we will always, if we think we're better than them, we will judge them. And if we think they're better than us, right, then we're going to judge ourselves and we're going to feel like an imposter, et cetera. So, but the thing is that there's judgment that's happening both ways. So it's either like an above or below, but what if we could really, truly stop and go, they're just different. And I know that sounds a little cliche, right? Oh, they're different, but they're like a better kind of different. And I want to be that better kind of different. But the thing is that there is nobody, this is one of my soapbox issues. And I get so excited about it that I start to sweat. So bear with me. But
we can't tell.
There's nobody on this planet, nobody that will ever be like you, that ever has been like you, and that ever is, and that is like you right now. So forget 1 in 7 billion. You are literally one of a kind. And if that's true, then we actually have a responsibility to show up as our best version of us. Not just, hey, it would be nice and I bet I could make an impact. We have a responsibility to show up and to actually contribute everything that we've got. And when we can make that shift, then we're really in the money, right? Both figuratively and literally. That's when we really start to make the impact on the world, and whether it's a career and a job, or whether that's your own business, or if that means you're a stay-at-home mom, right? Or a stay-at-home dad. Yeah. Whatever the case is, however you are contributing, when you show up as your best version of you, that's when it pays off. But you can't do that until you can own that that who you are and how you're wired, the things you've experienced in your life, the education that you've gotten both sort of vicariously, right? Just by your life experiences and what you've gone through, but also your formal education. And then you look at your values, the family you were brought up in, and maybe some of the values that you rejected from your family versus ones that have stayed stable for you throughout the years. If you look at all those things, and then on top of that, you put in there your Strengths Finder profile, which has now been renamed Clifton Strengths, but it will always forever and ever be Strengths Finder for me. Anyway, I still call it Strengths Finder, even though it's been renamed. But this profile, and why I love it so much, is that I grew up wondering what was wrong with me. Right. And I know I'm not alone, because I hear this
Definitely
reverberated
all the
everywhere
time.
I go. Yeah. Right. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be like that person? Why can't I just be like that person? And what's wrong with me? Why am I always so screwed up? Why did I screw up this? Why did I fail at that relationship? Why did I get an F in that class at school? And it starts from the beginning of our lives. And this profile proves to you in black and white, psychometrically. It's a psychometric, which means that it's repeatable, it's reliable. Doesn't matter if you're in a good mood or a bad mood, you're going to get stable results. What is right with you?
Yeah, right.
And when we can start with what's right with us instead of what's wrong with us, we are worlds ahead of where we used to be.
Yes. Okay. So I have an example, because I work with a lot of women who are making transitions in their lives, and they look at what they've been told they do well and what they need to improve. Right. Now, when I was in my last corporate job, my boss told me that I couldn't write, and he didn't want me writing, because as it turns out, he didn't like my writing style. Now, if any of you have followed my writing, I'm a prolific writer. Now that I have looked at my strengths and realized the difference between somebody giving you criticism and saying you're not good at something versus whether that person likes the way that you do that thing, right? So you don't necessarily fit into the box of your current boss or your current job, or maybe you need to shift some things around but by looking at your fundamental core strengths and being able to say, okay, so I didn't fit into that box, is a totally different way to look at yourself and to look at how you show up in the world. And I think that's really what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's what's interesting. And this is some of the pushback that I get on this. Well, if how I'm wired is good enough, then why aren't I succeeding? Right. So what I'm not saying is that you should have a fixed mindset. Right. So there's a difference between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Whether you're wired one particular way or not, you can still optimize and optimize and optimize those strengths. What's interesting is that we have 3 areas of weakness that show up in our life. Okay. We have overuse of our strengths and how they operate. Our strengths drive our behavior. So when we don't know what to do, or we run out of tools, we're going to use our easiest buttons, right? And our easiest buttons are our strengths. So we're just going to overuse and overuse and overuse. And it's like turning the radio up too loud on our car, right? Or have you ever pulled up next to someone at a stoplight, and your rear view mirrors are rattling because their radio's so loud? Right. So that music doesn't sound good anymore, even if it's Prince. Like it doesn't sound good because it's turned up too loud. So that's what one area of our weakness is overuse of our strengths. And then we have underuse. So what happens when we get burnt out, or we feel like we're sort of suffocating and things are going on there, we shut our strengths down. And now we're not contributing. Or
when somebody criticizes us for something that is a strength, like one of my top 5 strengths is woo, which is about winning others over. And to me, it's about building relationships with people, which I find really a core part of who I am. But if you've been criticized, for example, you spend too much time talking to people in the office, or you're just too, you're just too friendly, or you're reaching out to whatever the criticism is, then you may start to shut down something that if you were in the right job, or if you were focusing on the things that are your strengths, would really help you succeed because of that criticism.
Yeah, let me give you a metaphor that might help to drive this point home. So, our strengths need things like humans need air and water.
Hmm.
So, Melissa, are you a good breath holder?
I've never thought about that question. I would say I'm probably an average breath holder.
Okay,
Yeah.
as an average breath holder, you could probably take a nice deep breath, put your head underwater, and stay there comfortably for like a minute.
Yeah,
Right?
probably.
And
I'll go with
then,
that.
but eventually you start to run out of air,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Now imagine that somebody, maybe that's a boss, maybe that's self-criticism, maybe that's something else, holds your head under the water, right? Okay.
Yeah,
So now you've run out of air and you're going to do everything in your power to get air because you
right.
need it. Right.
Yeah,
So you're going to be kicking, you're going to be clawing at their arms, you're going to be doing whatever you can. That behavior outside of that situation looks pretty crazy. Right.
Yes.
So, but naturally, that's what's happening when your strengths aren't being fed.
Wow.
So when we shut our strengths down or somebody else imposes that upon us, then our behavior does come all kinds of sideways. And then we sit there and we go, God, what's wrong with me? Well, nothing. You were just trying to breathe. Right?
That's
So
a
when we
great
can,
metaphor. Yeah, I
so
love
when we
that.
can start to understand that, now we can now ask for what we need. Like, hey, excuse me, tap, tap, uncle, I need air. Right. And if you can't get that, well, you're not a tree, so you can move. But now you know you can dip under the water a little bit further, get out of that person's clutch and get out of the water. Right. So once we understand what's going on there, we are now empowered to actually take some steps forward that will serve us and that hence will serve others, because we can't serve anybody if we're, dying of suffocation. So we've got
well said. That's tweet that,
well
right?
said. Tweet that. You can't serve anybody if you're dead. So those are two areas of our weakness. The other area is just simply non-strengths, right? So imagine if we optimize the strengths we already have, worked on those, grew those, and then the stuff that we're just not wired for, that's where we find processes or people to fill in those gaps.
Oh,
and
yes. Instead of beating yourself up and saying I'm just so bad at managing projects, I can't ever seem to get things done on time.
Totally.
Instead, you say, oh, I'm really good at doing these other things and I need a partner to help me manage the projects.
So here's the beauty of it is that the human species is a social species.
Yeah.
Okay. So biologically, we are wired to need one another, to be in community. Right. The reason that we are biologically perfectly lopsided is so that we can't do everything on our own. Because if we could do everything on our own, we wouldn't need community.
I love that. I've never heard that before, Alissa. That is so insightful. So how do we get started on this path? I mean, we spend so much time criticizing ourselves and saying, these are all the things I'm bad at doing.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit about strengths and working with someone like Alissa, who, and this absolutely changed my life, you guys. When I did the Strengths Finder and I realized I was in a job I was not using my strengths in that job, made me realize, open my eyes to the fact that it wasn't me. I mean, it was partially me. I have to own that. There was some of me going on that was not on the right track. But when I was able to see what my strengths are, and then I was able to consciously shift and stop feeling so bad about myself all the time and punishing myself and beating myself up, I was able to say, oh, these are the things I'm really good at. And when I looked closely at those things, I realized I needed to find a different path so that I could bloom and shine and do my best work. So give us some tips for how we start down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one is awareness. And then, and you do this awareness. I actually have an exercise where you figure out your 4 things. Because there are 4 things that are going to prove to you in black and white. And that's what I needed. Because it wasn't enough for someone to be like, Alissa, you're great. And you've got great potential. I was like, yeah, whatever. I want to be this other person over here. And so to prove to me and with our limiting beliefs, we actually will filter in information that reinforces those beliefs right? And filter
Yes.
out information that doesn't. So if you believe in your core that you're, you suck, right? You're going to filter in every little bit of information that reinforces that. And it doesn't matter how much information says you're great, you're not going to be able to get that externally reinforced.
Right.
So you have to start working on it, prove it to yourself in black and white first. So those 4 areas, get a pen, ladies and gents, those 4 areas are your values. What do you believe in? What are the things that are really important to you? So write down those values. Your education, and that's both informal and formal. I read a ton of books, and guess what? Those books are part of my education. So this can be formal university, or other kinds of conferences, etc. Or it can be informal things like, I read 52 books last year, or whatever the case may be. What do you know? What is your knowledge? What is your education? Then you've got your life experiences. Okay. And these are both the good and the bad, right? Yeah. A lot of people want to ignore the bad, or they want to hide the bad. But here's the thing, is that even those negative experiences can be used to push your life forward. They can give you purpose. Many times our bad life experiences will give us our why we go about doing whatever it is we do.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If we were traumatized as a child, let's say we almost drowned as a child. Let's go back to drowning, because why not, right? We're on this death mode,
We're
right?
drowning today.
Maybe that drives you to teach kids, pre-kindergarten kids how to swim. Who knows, right? Whatever the case may be, you can use that terrible life experience to give you purpose, and so that other people can shortcut the pain you went through, right?
Yes.
So both our positive and our negative life experiences make us beautifully unique. And then we've got the StrengthsFinder profile, and I would highly encourage everybody to go spend the $20 and the 30 minutes that it takes to take this profile, just to begin to understand, how am I hardwired? Let's start with that. So your strengths will give you your how you go about doing whatever it is you do. So don't use it to choose a career, but you have to make sure that in your career, you can use your strengths to go about your business, whatever that business might be. Yeah. Your education and your life experiences will give you your what, and your life experiences and your values will give you your why. You need all 3 of those things in order to truly be empowered to make a good choice as to what your new trajectory might be.
Right. Now, if I remember correctly, this is in your book.
It is.
Is that correct? And I have the name of your book on the screen, From Frustrated to Frickin' Awesome, 4 Steps to Achieve the Success You're Wired For. And Alissa will walk you through in her book, which I read and I remember, and I did all the exercises. And I think that was a unique thing about your book, is that each step has exercises that you can go through and use, so that you can walk away from reading the book, not only with some new ideas about how to think about yourself, but some real solid action steps forward.
That's right. Because without the application, that doesn't do you any good. Knowledge without action is, I don't know. There's some epic quote, and I typically, always screw up quotes, but you get the idea, right?
We get the idea.
You can have the knowledge, but if you're not acting upon it, what good is it doing you? Everybody knows we're supposed to exercise. Everybody knows, that we're not supposed to eat McDonald's every day because it's not healthy. And yet McDonald's is flourishing. Right. And there are lots of unused
salads now.
Right.
Everybody's
and there's
ordering
unused
salads.
Gym memberships everywhere. So the knowledge isn't the problem. It's the application and the implementation. Yeah. So, and that takes self-discipline. But when you make this shift to, gosh, you know what? I am freaking awesome. I am actually super amazing. I have a responsibility to get out there and contribute. When you can make that shift, now the application, the moving forward, will start to be bigger than your fear of not moving forward.
Yeah, right. That's so powerful. And I encourage everybody to pen to paper, my friends, do this activity, get Alissa's book, check it out. Another thing you talk a lot about in your podcast and on your Facebook page is around vulnerability. And this is a topic that is really hot, as Brene Brown has really made it public and brought vulnerability into the conversation. it's counterintuitive to us to be vulnerable. So talk to us a little bit about how you teach people to embrace vulnerability. What is sharing versus oversharing? And how does it affect your relationship with your clients, with your boss, the people you work with?
Yeah. Oh, that's a fully loaded question. Okay. So here's what I will say. It is extremely, it's not even scary. It is terrifying and almost incapacitating to open up the thought of being vulnerable without first understanding just how amazing you are.
Right.
Right. So here's the thing is that I know I'm freaking awesome in all of these areas. Right.
Yes.
So, and I've done a decade of work around that.
But I love that
this
you
didn't come overnight.
I love that you said though, in these specific areas. So what you're saying is you're freaking awesome at these things. It doesn't mean you're freaking awesome at every single thing.
Right.
And
because I'm not well rounded
about like, how we work together and how we're wired as humans to work together, and that we have deficiencies that we need to fill in with other people. So I really love that. So
So the owning that just how awesome you are part has to come first, and that will come in progression. But you need those nuggets of, oh yeah, I am good. Okay, so if I'm good here, it's okay for me to be vulnerable here. And when you recognize that you're awesome in certain areas, then you also recognize if this is true for me, this is also true for other people. Right. So now you can seek out, wow, you're really great here. And it doesn't have to be a lack thing. Like, I wish I had that. They just have something different. And guess what? You've got all these things that they don't have. And so when we understand that, now we can reach out and say, I'm having this challenge. It's not in my area of strength. So can you help? Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it takes time and it takes, but it makes you real. So what we have on social media is a whole slew of people spewing their opinions, spewing their areas of expertise. Right. But it's all like this beautiful facade. And the people who connect with others are the ones who go, yeah, you know what? But, I had this challenge, or, my kid just puked on me over here, which, you wouldn't know that, but, they're outside the office and, whatever. Actually, my kids are at school right now, but you get the idea, right? So, and it's that little piece of vulnerability. Like I'm having a challenge here. And that's why I built my podcast the way that I did, which is we will tell everybody how amazing you are. And then you're required to tell us what challenge you're working through, not 5 years ago. We're not looking for a hero story here. What challenge are you going through right now? Because if you're going through a challenge, there's a whole ton of people who are as well. And we can actually do better together when we talk about that challenge. And it gives someone else an opportunity to shine. Oh my gosh, you're having that challenge. That's actually my area of expertise. That's my area where I shine. And I can see where you shine over here. And now we have what comes together to be true synergy. And, the other thing that keeps us from shining is shame. Right? Shame and guilt overall, but shame only lives in darkness. And I'm using the the shine darkness on purpose here. So shame lives in silence. But when we begin to say, hey, you know what? I'm embarrassed about this thing. And you do that with somebody you trust. I highly encourage you not to just like throw it out on Facebook.
Right.
Because those people don't have a relationship with you. It is important that you know who are you being vulnerable to. Right.
Exactly.
If you're going to have someone who's going to notice that chink in your armor and just jab you right in your side, you need to know who you're being vulnerable to. So practice with somebody you trust.
Right.
Hey, I just want to share this little thing with you, and I'm really embarrassed about it, but hey, I got your back. Like, let's talk about this over a glass of wine. Right.
Yeah.
And
a lot
and
of the
then
women that I
out of the shadows.
I love that. But now here's the thing. A lot of the women that I work with, well, and the men too, work in corporate environments where, especially women, you cannot show any weakness. Now, whether or not this is true has to be explored for each individual. But a lot of the women I work with say, I cannot be vulnerable. I cannot show weakness. If somebody asks me a question, I cannot say, I don't know. And I need something else to say, some other words to show that I am strong and I am in control. And the way I respond in those moments will either raise the alarm for my boss or whoever I'm talking to, and they will say this person doesn't know what she's doing or doesn't know what she's talking about. And we are held to a different level, a different standard.
It's
so I will absolutely agree and encourage everyone to find someone that you can be vulnerable with, but to be careful about it. And you may have a mentor or an advisor or an ally. And for example, I worked with a woman who said, I just don't feel comfortable contributing in these meetings with people who are higher level than me. So we worked out a plan for her to find an ally, somebody that she could collaborate with, who would kind of have her back and say, so-and-so, she has a great idea about this. You should listen to her. Or, didn't you have a great idea? And just kind of prompt her. And they had a partnership before the meeting so that they could go into that meeting with more confidence. And those kinds of actions can help to buoy you up when you might be otherwise feeling too vulnerable.
Yeah, and as they say, the fish stinks from the head, right? When you see CEOs who are willing to take full responsibility and say, "Hey, this failure was my fault," and really begin to own that, and the leadership begins to change. But here's the thing that those types of corporate environments don't see. Right? Is that they're actually sabotaging their overall success because the people are holding back from contributing, and they're also making mistakes because they're not comfortable bringing up questions. Right? Yeah. So I work with corporate teams to help them with their leadership. Like, you have to open up this conversation to say, "Hey, this is where I thrive. And this is how I thrive. But unfortunately, like over here, this is where I don't thrive." Now, I will say, when it comes to vulnerability, there are some things that you do need to be cautious of, right? So for instance, if you are a web designer, we'll just say, it is not okay for you to come out and be like, "I am terrible at coding and I have no idea what WordPress is," right? Like, because that's a skill set that you should have as a web designer. Right? Or as a web coder. So I think that it's important to understand where is my area of expertise, and is there something here that I need to educate myself on in order to be better skilled at my job. Now, and this is the difference between skills and strengths. Right. So skills are a learned set. Prior to coaching and entrepreneurship, I was in healthcare. Right. As a bedside nurse, I had to know how to do things like safely administer medications. I had to know how to change dressings on wounds and things like that. That's skill. Now, my bedside manner, that's a whole different thing. Right. So there's how I go about doing those things that comes from my strengths. Right. And so when you can separate the two and go, okay, this is a skill that I need to work on versus, without beating yourself up, like it's just, you just need to work on that skill versus, hey, this is how I'm wired to function. So this is what I need in order to thrive in this setting, doing this particular skill. They're not the same. And this is why I do what I do, right? Because it does take someone from the outside. It does take someone who understands how strengths are wired and how they function in order to kind of parse out some of that stuff and go, what is skill? And, what should I not say in the middle of a board meeting? Right.
Right. I just want to be vulnerable right now, guys. And I just share this.
By the way, I haven't actually done my job for 6 months. I just want to be vulnerable.
But I'm just being vulnerable.
I'm just being vulnerable. Please don't fire me. So recognize, and so there's tact, and there's emotional intelligence, and there's social intelligence that you need to contribute to the bunch here. And this is what you're talking about with really figuring out what is the game plan. How are we going in here with a good game plan so we understand all of the different dynamics, because the human experience is a practice.
Boy, that's a great place to wrap it up, because I could talk to you all day.
I know. I know.
Alyssa,
So good. Such good stuff.
It's so good to hear. And I can keep listening to you by going and listening to your podcast, which I have up on the screen now. Make sure you check it out. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not, Alissa interviews smart, interesting, fun, funny, motivated people who are living life according to their strengths. And you can find tremendous inspiration, wherever you are in your life and whatever place you're at with your own business, or if you work for a company. We all have these fundamental things in common that make us human, that help us connect and help us be our best. So people can find you. I've put all your information on the screen. Do you have anything to give away to people? I know you have a ton of free resources, including the podcast, of course. But I think you mentioned a couple of things on our conversation that you can find on your website.
So we do, we talked about the 4 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those things are all in my book. But if you're not a book reader, or, you just don't want to buy my book, fine. I've actually put together an e-workbook that will walk you through how to identify your specific 4 things. So it's just a 5-page little workbook that's going to be quick and easy for you to start really owning just how freaking awesome you are. So if you go to daire-to-succeed.com/Melissa. That will be ready in about 15 minutes. I have to create the little short link, but it will be ready. It'll be ready by the time you're watching this on replay. So it's DAIRE.com/Melissa. And that will get you your free e-workbook. So you can start figuring out and owning just how freaking awesome you are, and the stuff that cascades from that, that knowledge, that awareness, that ownership. Man, oh man, is that powerful.
Yeah, it really is. I want to thank those of you who commented. And if you're watching this in the replay, feel free to comment or ask a question. Alissa and I will answer those questions after the broadcast as well. And thank you so much, Alissa. You dropped some amazing knowledge on us today, and we will continue this conversation. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Melissa. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.